Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Carlos with Twins Reef, and this is the update on the 20-gallon Integrated Marine drop-off tank. Not only am I gonna be showing an update on this reef tank, but if you guys have been dealing with dinos, I'm going to be mentioning how I was able to get rid of dino planktons. So let's start right off how I got rid of dinos. So this is probably my second attempt on setting up this 20-gallon integrated marine tank. The first time I tried to set this tank up was for an anemone only tank. There was a couple corals like Dragonsolphabias and some candy cane, except we didn't have no sand. After a couple weeks of setting up that tank, I started to get a lot of dinos, and unfortunately it suffocated all my corals, killing all my corals except my mushrooms. And I basically sold my anemones and left these rocks sitting in a bucket until I finally decided to set up this tank again. Not only that, but this time I was going to be using dead sand or dry sand. So I had this tank cycling for about 2 months, but after 2 weeks of setting this tank up, I started to notice that it started to have dinos, not diatoms, but dinoplanktons is slightly different. It's more like a brown algae or brown sludge that basically covers the rocks. It covers the algae. I was trying to find research how to get rid of it, and I was going to use a product called Dino X. You can find it on Amazon. However, I've read a bunch of the reviews, how people were mentioning that it was killing their corals. So after further research, I found out that if you have an imbalanced biome in your tank, that is when these diatoms and dinos will appear. So what I decided to do, because previously on my 20-gallon, I mean this one basically, but on the last time I tried to set this tank up, what I did a blackout on this tank, and I was basically doing water changes, which is not a good thing because you basically want an established reef. You do not want to get rid of all that beneficial bacteria. So to create the biome on this reef tank, what I decided to do, guys, was to dose beneficial bacteria. The products that I used was the flubal beneficial bacteria, and then I used CCAM, which I forgot the name of their bottle, but it was a CCAM beneficial bacteria product, and I was basically dosing whatever was the recommended dose 2 times each day. And every time I did a water change, I would basically dose 2 times what I recommended when you do a water change. And immediately within a week, I started to notice the dinos, disappearing. And that's how I got rid of dinos. Really simple. Before, guys, I was having a hard time with dinos for 2 months, and I was unable to get rid of it. Probably one thing that played a role was then that I didn't have no sand, which could cause the biome balance of the tank to be off. So having just sand, rocks, and media allows the bacteria to live there and to thrive. So this time, guys, within a week, I literally got rid of all the dinos. Really simple. I was so stressed previously. I was gonna go with Dino X using chemicals, but after reading those reviews, killing corals, I was like, I gotta figure out how to do it differently. I almost gave up on this tank, but honestly, once I got rid of dinos, this tank is literally doing super good. I'm happy with this tank because we do have SPS, and all the SPS are doing good. In my main display tank on my Red Sea Reefer, there I have issues keeping simple SPS like these digitatas, the blue stylos, the green slimers, and the green digitatas. Here in this tank, we're able to keep all of those. So this tank was actually set up in my son's room. They've been wanting a reptile tank. They wanted a terrarium, but I decided to actually set them up a Reef tank instead because it's a little bit more easier to keep, in my opinion. I mean, and everything that they did in this tank, they chose all the fish except the black storm clownfish. So let's start with the update right away. I'm going to turn off the flow, that way we're able to look at some of the SPS. But I recently just added this green frog spawn. I've always wanted a frog spawn since I had one before, but this one's slightly different than the other frog spawn I had. So I know there's different lineage or strains when it comes to all these euphyllias. This one, I don't really like it. The tentacles are like thinner than the one I had before, but I moved it to this tank not because I don't like it, but because there's a lot of flow in my tank and it wasn't opening up. So I just actually placed this frog spawn yesterday here, and it's doing really well. The video doesn't make it justice. It has a lot of color and it's pretty large. Next to it, we have this large, looks like a toxic hammer. It's almost 2 heads. It looks like it wants to split. It's one large head, but it seems like it wants to split. I bought this one with another one for a deal that I couldn't pass, and I placed it in the twins tank because they always complained that in their tank it was so simple. They said that the SPS were so boring and they wanted to have anemones. I told them that what I had wasn't anemones, but there were euphyllia, like hammers and torches, and they're like, oh, can we get that? So that's what I bought them. When the day I bought them the hammer, I also bought them this torch right here. I don't know what type of torch it is. It's more like has like a brown stems or tentacles with green tips. I almost didn't buy it because typically when you are going to be buying euphyllia, you always want to make sure that it has flesh at the base. Not long ago, I followed one of the Facebook groups where somebody was complaining they had bought a fresh cut torch from a store, and that torch started to die once, within 24 to 48 hours. But after looking at the pictures that they uploaded, I've noticed that it didn't have that much flesh on the base of the torch. So it's always recommended to look at that. That will tell you how healthy the coral is. And you always want to make sure there's no cuts, or the coral, if the coral's closed up too, it's already stressed and you don't want to get it, take it to your house and make it even more stressed. However, I gambled on this one because it was basically $40, which I thought it was a reasonable price for it. And I know that this tank is doing really well, and I'll be able to keep any coral that I basically want. So that's what we've been doing, getting a lot of corals for this tank, even though it's small. I kind of want to set up my Red Sea Max E170. I haven't sold it yet. It's basically 45 gallons. This is a 20 gallon, but in reality it only holds like 15 gallons of water or so. And we already have a bunch of corals here, but everything's doing well. All the SPS are doing well as well. I'm gonna give you guys a top view of the corals. I think this one's what's called the green slimer, if I'm correct. We have a bunch of those all over this rock, and we have the green digitata, if that's the right name for it. We have the forest digitata next to it. We have the blue stylos there, and then we have another digitata there and another one there. So everything was basically came from our main display tank, and they were all dying. They weren't opening up, so I was like, let me just throw them in this tank and we'll see how everything goes. And literally within 2 weeks to a month, all the corals, all these SPS, their polyps started to extend. They started to get color and started to grow. As you guys can see, this blue stylo, super nice. That digitata is thriving. I know it doesn't look so well, but it looks better than how it did previously. Same thing with the green digitata and all these green slimers. I don't know if I'll be able to catch it on camera, but if you see that one right there, it has white tips. That basically means that it's growing, so that is really good. As long as you don't see like the actual branch white, then you shouldn't have any concerns. If the tips are white, that means that it is growing. So that is super good news. That means that this tank could grow any type of corals. We do have as well some bird's nests that they are right there, and they're doing good as well. Super happy for them. There's some corals that didn't make it, like this one here, which was some bird's nest as well. There's a couple of pieces too down here that, you know, fortunately they didn't make it. And now we have a bunch of mushrooms in this tank because these are basically mushrooms that detach themselves from the rocks in my main display tank, and I just threw them here, and I'll show you guys the other ones that we have. But this one's a red discosoma. Down here we have a blastos that basically almost died. It wasn't doing so well in my main display. It was covered with hair algae. I threw him here, and literally within a week it didn't have no more hair algae. Not long ago we bought like $20 worth of snails and hermit crabs. We split, it was probably like, yeah, either $40, and we put 10 snails here and 10 hermit crabs and the rest in my main display. But within a week, all these hermit crabs and snails started to get to working, and they were able to get rid of all that hair algae. There's no algae in the rock. Not only that, but since we were struggling with dinos and with some hair algae, I almost threw a tuxedo urgent. My sons wanted one, and then we saw a bunch of videos how people were mentioning they're super good with algae. However, they do eat coralline algae, and most of us like to see our rocks purple. We like to see coralline in our tank. There's some people that don't, but if you do like I do, that's one thing I didn't want to buy the tuxedo urgent. However, that's not the reason why we didn't buy it. We went like to 3 different stores. We weren't unable to find them, but we forgot all about it now since the tank is doing super well. You don't even see no algae at all. All the hermit crab is doing what they have to do. Snails too. For fish, we have the black storm clownfish doing really good. Grumpy. We have the firefish. It only comes out when I turn off the flow of the tank, and that's when I do it, when I feed this tank. But once we turn on the flow, it hides somewhere right there where these rocks are. But it decided to come out. Not only that, we had also bought a guppy. I mean, not a guppy, sorry guys. A molly, saltwater molly. You know, they start off as freshwater, then they get acclimated to saltwater. We bought it because, again, we were having issues with algae and with dinos, and we were trying to find out what fish are good at eating algae that will be able to be in a nano tank like this 20-gallon. I know that the fox face rabbit fish, they're really good at eating algae, not only hair algae, but they're really good at eating as well bubble algae. So we got this molly, and it's doing really well. Another fish we had bought was a shrimp goby. Fortunately, not long ago, I was cleaning my son's room and I found it, or actually they found it, or my wife, one of them two. They were cleaning this room and they found it, and it was all dried up. I don't know when and why would it jump. It would always be with the pistol shrimp, which is somewhere right there. I can see it with my eyes, but the camera, I don't think the camera's gonna be able to pick it up, unfortunately. So we only have the pistol shrimp there. Here we have a lactus mushroom. So we'll see how it does in this tank. It basically detached itself from the 3-inch disc that I have with multiple of these. So one story regarding the lactus, I recently sold all my lactus, guys, the mother and all the babies. So hopefully this lactus mushroom gets some color like the mom. If not, it's gonna be unfortunate. Talking about the pistol shrimp, it's right there. it's coming out. It saw that I wasn't in the front of the tank anymore, so I don't know if it's looking for food or not. Let me see if we could actually capture it from the front. And yes, we can. And there is that pistol shrimp. Super nice, super happy. Unfortunately, it doesn't have its goby friend, so pretty soon we might get him another goby. This time probably a watchman goby. Here we have more discosomas, some Superman mushrooms, and then yeah, that's pretty much it. We have this little flipper thing that I won from a giveaway. My kids played with it and it's already all scratched up, but I mean, it's really nice. I like how it looks better than the original flipper magnifying glass that they had. This one's nicer, looks better on the tanks. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this update. I hope you guys were able to get something out of how to get rid of dinos. And until next time, guys, I am out. Peace.